Your health is a balance between two things: how fast you're losing cells and how many stem cells you have to offset that cellular loss. Stem cells follow inflammation. Inflammation is first and foremost a signal to tell stem cells where they need to go for repair. You lose cells making insulin, it's diabetes. You lose cells making T3, T4, it's hypothyroidism. Lose cells making dopamine, it's Parkinson. Think of any one of those age-related disease is the loss of cell, showing that by putting more stem cells in circulation, you can repair the heart, the brain, the lung, the liver, the pancreas. You can repair pretty much everything. Let's put more stem cells in circulation, and now your body can regenerate itself, can compensate for cellular loss, can respond better to this process of tissue turnover, and you age with greater health span.
Welcome to the Vitalist Podcast, where healing meets wonder. This is your space to gain transformative knowledge, deepen your mind-body connection, and awaken your human spirit. If you're ready to connect with your innate potential, embrace life's challenges, and expand what you believe is possible, this is the place. Get ready to slow down, be moved, and live like a true vitalist. Let's start with the basics, though. What is the stem cell? Paint a picture for me. How do you see it?
So the stem cells, I find that the best way to define it is to say what is not a stem cell. So all the cells in your body are referred as to somatic cells. They're all the cells, like your muscle, your skin, your retina, your pancreas, everything in your body. They are specialized cells. They do one specific thing. They will never transform and never really multiply. So stem cell is the opposite. It's a cell that will multiply during the entire life of an individual. It's essentially immortal in your body, at least in your bone marrow. It does nothing as a stem cell. Its function is to transform into other types of cells, and then they become like this, anything in the body. Yes, they can become blood cells, but they can also become everything else in the body. So they are basically the repair system of the body. So just like whenever we have an immune system, we have a repair system. That's what stem cells do in the body.
How often are they multiplying, and what does that look like?
I mean, it's a complicated question because you have different types of stem cells. Some are more dormant than others. But let's say, aside from cells that are dormant, like fat-derived stem cells, for example, they are constantly multiplying because you release them every day. So they're constantly multiplying. That process does not really stop. Now, if you challenge the bone marrow, you can enhance this process. So when you release stem cells, you basically boost their multiplication as well. But that process never stops. It goes during your entire life, and it's just what stem cells do. They have telomerase. In the bone marrow, they have telomerase. So the telomeres are constantly regenerated, which is what makes stem cells from the bone marrow immortal.
Can you elaborate on telomerase for people that don't know what that is?
Telomerase is at the end of every gene, there is a series of nucleotides. And basically the use of them in the cell is that, think of them as the little ends that your cell will hang on to, hold this DNA to be able to copy that DNA. So each cellular division, you clip a part of these telomerase. So you have technically roughly about like 50 generations, 50 cellular division before you have exhausted those telomeres. And when the telomere is gone, then the cell can no longer divide, and it's called a senescent cell. And then that cell is only going to die and basically make the room for another cell, which is a stem cell coming now in that tissue and being a new fresh cell of that tissue. So that's the role of telomeres, is to provide or allow the ability for chromosome to duplicate, and they determine the lifespan of a cell.
Talk to me about where these are stored, because I don't think most people realize that stem cells are stored in different areas of the body or different mediums. So give us, where are they stored?
Every single organs and tissues in the body, they all have their own layer of stem cells. And now I'll bring this even further. I would say now with the latest data, in the whole wild world of stem cells, they're not unique. They are everywhere. You spit on the sidewalk, stem cells are in there. You go to pee, stem cells are in there. They are everywhere. They are part of your day-to-day repair process everywhere in the body. So they are everywhere in the body. But they come from the bone marrow, they leave the bone marrow, and they migrate in various tissues. And this cycle of cells leaving the bone marrow, getting into a tissue, multiplying to the full extent of the telomeres in that tissue, reaching senescence, then dying, then replaced by another cell coming from the bone. This process is going on during the entire life of an individual. And to a large extent, dictate how healthy you age, dictate disease formation, dictates longevity.
Are all stem cells a blank slate, like an open canvas, and then they get to become what they want?
They are a blank slate in the bone marrow. They are no longer a blank slate when they get into a tissue. They're called progenitor cells. So they have started to get into a direction. They technically cannot reverse, but we know that it's not quite the truth. So at times they can reverse, but they are, generally speaking, committed to go in a direction. Oval cells, for example, in the liver have been shown to basically revert and transform into pancreatic cells, making insulin, as an example. You can take hair follicle stem cells, inject them into a spinal cord lesion, and they repair the spinal cord. And then the animal will regain mobility. So just to show you, like, it's not as clean as science would like it to be. They get into the heart, for example, they become heart stem cells. They could get back into the blood circulation, get trapped back in the bone marrow. So when you take a sample in the bone marrow, you can find stem cells that show you that they have started to become liver cells, heart cells, lung cells. So your sample from the bone marrow is not homogeneous. So this is like a very, very moving population of cells.
This is wild. So it can transform and have multiple lives and express different cells.
It can, to an extent.
Okay, I kind of want to go back to the origin because now we're getting pretty deep with this. When was like the first stem cell? Like, take me to embryo. How do you see stem cells and how we built our human being?
The day of conception is the first cell. So that is like the ultimate stem cells. Now, this stem cell will grow within 5 to 8 days into a lump of cells. It's called the blastula. And these cells, every single one of them, if you isolate it, can reproduce the full organism. So these are they are embryonic stem cells. Past that stage, they slowly lose the ability of becoming the full organism, if you want, but they're still extremely powerful. So they move into that phase of becoming like fetal stem cells. But looking at the power of these cells to form an entire being, so they're extremely powerful, but they're no longer as powerful as embryonic stem cells. When the baby is fully formed at birth, those stem cells that you collect from the umbilical cord are adult stem cells by definition. And these stem cells, a bunch of them are left in the bone marrow, and they will be your repair system during the entire life of a human being. Now, you have more of them in circulation. They are more potent when you're young because that's what you need. You're still growing. When you have reached full maturity, they are less potent. Let's say age 30, they have lost some of their potency. Their number have decreased dramatically because you have now completed your growth process. And now they're remnant in your body, basically just as your repair system and to supply cells for the normal tissue turnover in the body. Because this is probably in the whole world of stem cells, to me, is the biggest discovery, is that the body is indeed going through a process of turnover, but each organ and tissue at its own pace. So now we know you get a new skin every month, a new liver every 2-3 years, a new pancreas, new lung, even the heart that was believed to not renew past about 10 years of age. Now we know that this is not true. We actually have about 1% a year of turnover in the heart. So the heart actually repairs. The brain was believed to not repair. We know that the brain repairs. This is like all of these paths have been opened, if you want, by the field of stem cell research. We experience aging like an old fence in your backyard. Every year it's a little bit more decrepit, and there's a point where it falls and it's dead. And so this is as an individual, our experience of aging. Like there's a decline that is growing. But in reality, this is not how aging is happening in the body. Your health is a balance between two things: how fast you're losing cells and how many stem cells you have to offset that cellular loss. When you're young, you have tons of stem cells, so you can have injuries, you can lose cells, you don't even notice it. Like you repair quick, you recover quick. I mean, you don't develop any problem when you're young. By age 30, red marrow has receded, transformed into fatty marrow that does not make stem cells. By age 30, you've lost about 90% of your red marrow. Your growth is completed. So now you have much, much fewer stem cells to participate to this process of compensating for cellular loss. So there's a point, and that's why we all discover in our 30s, early 40s, we don't recover as well as we used to. If you get an injury or a surgery, you don't heal as fast as you used to. You don't have the same experience of this healing process. And at the same time, you don't have as many stem cells to offset this process of tissue turnover. So if you don't have enough stem cells to offset this tissue turnover, that means you lose cells that are not replaced. So that means you grow a deficit in various tissues, and deficit in a tissue is the definition of age-related diseases. You lose cells making insulin, it's diabetes. You lose cells making T3, T4, it's hypothyroidism. Lose cells making dopamine, it's Parkinson. Think of any one of those age-related disease is the loss of cells. So all of this to say, the cause of the development of age-related disease is fundamentally the natural decline in the number of stem cells. To me, that is like probably the greatest discovery in the whole field of stem cells, because it gives us a greater leverage now to have an action against the development of these diseases. Let's put more stem cells in circulation, and now your body can regenerate itself, can compensate for cellular loss, can respond better to this process of tissue turnover, and you age with greater health span.
So the quantity of stem cells is very important because it does decline. Is there something about the quality of the stem cells? Does that exist?
Yeah. I would say very little work has been done to study what will affect the quality of your stem cells. So for now, I would say anything you know about healthy cells, just transpose that to stem cells. It will apply as well. Mitochondrial function, better fatty acid balance for better membranes. You know, everything that we know about stem cells, definitely DNA repair system, because these cells multiply a lot. If you take a mouse that is 10 months old, this is not a super old mouse, but it's getting into being geriatric mouse. So you trigger an injury, and then you take two groups. One group, you inject stem cells isolated from a newborn mouse, and you take stem cells from a, let's say, 18 months old mouse, which is like a really old mouse. And then you inject that into these 10-month-old mouse in which you triggered an injury, and they will repair much better and much faster with young stem cells. So young stem cells are much more effective, which has led to this very almost ubiquitous statement on YouTube and everywhere in the popular science, even in clinical science on stem cells, to say, therefore, past 40 years of age, your stem cells are no longer valid. You need to get an injection of umbilical cord stem cells. And it is absolutely false. It is true that they're not as good, but for example, with what I'm working with, plant that trigger the release of your own stem cells, we have a study. We've published preliminary data about 5 months ago. So it's an ongoing study on chronic stable congestive heart failure, but on the first 10 patients, stable chronic congestive heart failure. After 2 years, this is what medicine could do with them. And 6 months, just releasing their own stem cells every day, at 70 years old, all 10 have normal heart function. So your stem cells, even if they're old, they're still very effective. So there's a decline as we age. And so far, the only thing known to rejuvenate your stem cells is fasting. So if you fast for more than 3 days, not intermittent fasting, 3 days fasting. So if you do 3 days, I'm not saying a part of it does not happen with intermittent fasting, but it has not been documented yet. And I'm not sure if the benefit would be quantifiable. It's like tiny, tiny benefits that maybe could accumulate over time. But if somebody fasts for 3 days and you take stem cells before and after the fast, your stem cells behaved much younger than the one that you took 3 days before. So, and it's probably, I would assume, the same phenomenon of just autophagy. So you basically clean up these stem cells and they're just more effective.
Is there anything else that you can do besides fasting that optimizes how stem cells will behave?
Meditation has been shown to put more stem cells in circulation. Stress is probably what is damaging the most, not only your stem cells, your bone marrow, but also the function of these stem cells. This was shown, in the presence of hormone stress. So the stress hormones, stem cells will have a reduced ability to migrate into tissue and proliferate. So basically, if you're stressed for, let's say, 20, 30, 40 years, welcome to modern life. During all that time, your ability to repair is suppressed. So to me, it almost like suddenly explains why stress is a component of so many. It's almost like every single age-related disease, stress is one of its component. And now we know that it suppresses the ability to repair. And deficiency in stem cells is a component of all these diseases. So it's almost like it closed that loops. It's because of stem cell suppression that stress mainly, I'm not saying it's the only thing, but that the main effect of stress is just suppress your day-to-day ability to repair.
So let's go into the rhythm of stem cells, because we're constantly releasing these cells. They're always in circulation. What are the things that activate more of that stem cell release, like an injury or an illness that comes to be, or if I'm in an accident? Talk to me about what is the stem cell sensing in the body when there is an injury or stress?
So the process is when you have an injury, and it happens anytime, regardless of the problem. But where it was studied, just to give it kind of a mental image of where it's coming from, it's been studied with heart attacks, stroke, burn to the skin, bone fracture, significant injury to the skin. These are the main models where it was studied. So within, let's say, 12 hours of the injury, we can pick up specific compounds in the bloodstream that are known to be stimulator of stem cell mobilization, like GCSF, granulocyte colony stimulating factor, stem cell factor, interleukin 8. There are a few others. These are the main ones. So we can pick them up in the bloodstream. They go to the bone marrow, and they will trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So on the second day, you start to see the number of stem cells increasing in the bloodstream. It will peak after 3 to 5 days after the injury, and it can go about 10-fold increase in the number of stem cells in circulation. Now, these stem cells circulate. They don't know where to go. They've just been put in the bloodstream. So the way that they find where the injury is that starting on the second day, the injured tissue is releasing locally one specific compound called stromal-derived factor 1, SDF1. This compound, there's a receptor at the surface of stem cells that is specific to that compound. So when the stem cells circulate in the fine capillaries of this affected tissue, and SDF1 is released locally, it connects with that receptor, and immediately the stem cell will express adhesion molecule, will cling to the capillary wall, and then a whole cascade of events will happen, releasing enzymes to digest the connection between two epithelial cells of the capillary, another generation of adhesion molecules to make the stem cell cross through the capillary wall and then crawl in the tissue following that SDF1 signal to the site where it is actually released. And when the stem cell becomes in contact with cellular debris of that tissue, it makes them multiply and transform into cells of that tissue. Or, depending on the tissue, start to release growth factors that will awaken the stem cells of that tissue. Like in the brain and in the heart, it's a lot of that type of mechanism that is happening. In other tissue, stem cells from the bone marrow will do the job themselves. It's a combination of both. And the ratio of the two varies from tissue to tissue.
That's a lot of communication between the cells.
This is one area in the whole field of medicine or even popular science that is known, but it's so poorly talked about, which is the fact that cells talk to each other to a degree that is unbelievable. That it's the whole world of exosomes. That's what exosomes are. Exosomes is a cell talking to another cell. That's how they talk.
And do you think they talk through chemistry, or how do you see their language?
The biochemistry, and then we can extend and go into areas that there is data for it, but like definitely chemistry. So a stem cell will get in touch with membrane residues of a cell that has been injured and destroyed in the tissue. And now it's telling that stem cells, that's the tissue that I'm in. And it goes to the nucleus and it makes that stem cells kick into transformation into a cell of that tissues. So that's how they communicate. But they communicate like this everywhere throughout the entire body by releasing these pockets of chemicals. Sometimes they're pockets, sometimes they're chemicals released like hormones. They are released not in the pocket, but they're released in the medium. So they will touch all the cells that are around. And then we can go to another step, which is cells have chromophores, which is a new field that is fascinating. You can so the eye will see light in a very, very, very narrow spectrum, but light exists in a broad spectrum. So the world that is experienced by insects and many animals is a world that we absolutely do not know. It is so much vaster in its colors. We see a very narrow range of them. A lot of these colors, like you are in a box that has no windows, it's dark, but it's because the wavelengths that your retina can detect will not go through the wall. But there are wavelengths that will go through the wall. So you can shed certain wavelengths. Oftentimes they are in the infrared area through your skull, for example, and cells in your brain will see that light. So cells have chromophores that can be stimulated by light and can emit light, and so they can communicate with other cells through light. I mean, this is by itself super cutting edge, but it's a new field that is developing. Cell can communicate through light as well. As each cell is a battery. So there is a communication that can also happen through electrical communication, like EMF. So there's a lot of levels of these communications. We're just touching the surface. The one that has been the most documented is chemical communication through either a release compounds, which is what we call hormones or neurotransmitter, or in a pocket, this is an exosome.
How does a stem cell, let's say I have a heart defect or some kind of heart injury, how does my stem cell know to go to the heart?
Part of that question is, I don't know. But part of the question is, if the tissue is defective in one way or another, it's calling for repair. So stem cells will circulate and they will be called in that tissue and they will repair the tissue. Aside from that, if you've got a defect, but it's not an injury, you get like mitral valve prolapse, it's not an injury. So how is it that stem cells can go there and repair it? It's mind-boggling to me, but we have seen it. I may give part of an answer by saying that in the total absence of a signal for repair, stem cells will migrate in every tissue just as part of the natural process of tissue turnover. Let me give another side to this answer. If you inject fluorescent stem cells in a mouse, in the bone marrow, so you take a normal mouse, eliminate the stem cells, and inject fluorescent stem cells. And then you look, no injury. The mouse is just like having a normal life in its cage. And then let's say 8 months later, 10 months later, you look at all the tissues in the mouse. Everywhere you will see cells of those tissues that are green fluorescent. In some tissues like the liver, the entire liver will be green. Completely renewed by cells coming from the bone marrow. In the brain, fewer. But you can see like this, the entire body has had a certain level of renewal. So stem cells are going in various tissues in the absence of an injury. But you may not have enough to bring enough regenerative power to correct, let's say, something that has developed in a tissue that is not an injury, like mitral valve prolapse, for example.
This is really cool. So stem cells will go everywhere. How do they behave with cancer cells? Like, can they become a cancer cell? Is that a possibility?
it's a layer. It's a very layered question again. Yes, stem cells can become a cancer cell, but not in the way that we're talking about right now. Meaning that the best candidate for a cancer in a tissue is a stem cell from that tissue. A stem cell has 4 main genes that grant that stem cell the properties of stemness. So this ability of being immortal and multiplying all the time. And there's about like 4 genes. That's what a cancer cell is. It's a cell where some of these genes have been reactivated, and now that cell starts to multiply endlessly, and that's what a cancer is. So it's a disorganized multiplication and growth of a tissue. So a stem cell and a cancer cell have those same genes activated or active. The difference is that in a stem cell, it's organized, it's its function. It's done following a natural order, if you want. In a cancer, it is disorganized. It goes on and it does not stop. What we are talking about is a stem cell that is released from your bone marrow and now circulates and migrates into a tissue. That stem cell is actually anti-cancer for the tissue, because as it releases these exosomes that coordinate the whole process of cellular division and cellular differentiation, it signals to those cells that are dividing, it signals that it's time now to convert into cells of that tissue. And the cell cannot convert and lose its stemness while retaining its stemness that makes it divide. It's one or the other. So when a stem cell commands or entrains its neighboring cells to start to convert into cells of that tissue, well, your tumor stops growing. Stem cell released from the bone marrow in your body has more of an anti-cancer property. And it's what we have seen over the years. So we did a study, even this was like published maybe 15 years ago now, with the first ingredient that we documented acted as a stem cell mobilizer. And we implanted human breast cancer cells in mice and then monitored the growth of those tumors in 2 groups. One group was controlled, the other group we gave 10 times the human recommended amount of this blue-green algae extract that was triggering the release of stem cells. And after 6 weeks, we saw a 30% reduction in tumor growth in the animals in which we were triggering stem cell release.
Well, and wouldn't you say it's maybe not the intelligence of the cell, but it's the field that the cell is in. It's like the soil, right? That is contributing to turning on. What's happening in the human body that makes a cell want to become a cancer cell? Is it just inflammation in the body? Do you think it's something beyond that?
We know that inflammation is one of the cause of something like cancer. I mean, cancer is emerging from a tissue that cannot heal. So this is this is a concept that have been around for a long time. New things are emerging. Senescent cells, cells that have reached the end of their life. They no longer have telomeres, and they are filled with dysregulation. They're filled with misfolded proteins, organelles that are not functioning. They're filled of garbage. And if you don't trigger a proper process of autophagy, they are old cells spewing all kinds of dysregulation. And it creates an environment that is dysregulated, and that could lead to cancer. I think we can all agree that it's the terrain. It's a problem of the terrain that makes a cell become cancer cell. I think that everybody will agree to that. What is that terrain? It's definitely cellular dysregulation, diet. The psyche has an enormous role to play into this. That's another layer, to dive into it. But cancer is not my expertise. So I'm happy to share, but I'm a scientist. So I like that what I say is precise. And now I'm entering into a zone that is not really where I can be precise.
Well, and take me into that, because our first conversation, this was years ago, but you told me you lived in a monastery. And so I'm like, okay, this guy's a neurophysiologist, went to a monastery. How did that change how you see science and spirituality?
The monastery started way before the science. So it has not changed the science. The science has been bathed by this before I went to college. So that's what led me to then accelerated learning. I dove into the brain. Then I thought the best way to understand the brain is to study neurophysiology, like the hardware of the brain. And along the process, I guess I just discovered that no, knowing how the hardware is working is not really telling you how the brain is working. And I would say my best argument to capture all of this is near-death experience. Your brain has completely flatlined, and people come back with a greater understanding of themselves beyond what their mind gave them when there was brain activity. There is a greater identity that we experience when the brain flatlines, which is, I think, the aim of meditation, to erase yourself, the you that you know, erase it to meet the you that you don't really know. That is actually the real you that is much bigger, much stronger. So as I'm studying neurophysiology, I discovered that it's not really giving me the thing that I was kind of looking. So I bagged all my PhD into a master's, and that's why I only have a master's, because I stopped before the end of the PhD, and I went to live in a monastery. Now life brought me back to research. I've spent all my life in research, but it's not that this experience of the monastery was just like a stunt look or like a little period. It's actually, it's been all my life. So everything is baited by it more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good complement to your work, the science in the monastery. So we do have to talk about your product. Tell me about StemRegen. What is in that product?
So I was hired in 1995 to study this blue-green algae and how it worked, what were the mechanisms of action behind this blue-green algae. And I will go fast, but one thing leading to another, we knew that it was doing things that were exceptional, but we could not explain it. What if this blue-green algae, just like we have plants stimulating the immune system, what if this blue-green algae is boosting the repair system? But then in the back of my mind, we evolved in symbiosis with the environment. There has to be other plants that do that as well. So I traveled the world to look at plants used either globally or locally that have been associated with a broad variety of health benefits, and we tested their effect on stem cells. So StemRegen today is the blend of the top plants that I have documented over the past 25 years that act as stem cell mobilizers. So you take 2 capsules of StemRegen release, and we can quantify conservatively within 2-3 hours about 10 million additional stem cells in circulation. So you do this, let's say twice a day, you do this for a month, it's 600 million of your own stem cells that you have released. So it starts to be like very significant. So you look in the scientific literature, there is tons of science showing that by putting more stem cells in circulation, you can repair the heart, the brain, the lung, the liver, the pancreas. You can repair pretty much everything. So on the heart, we have enough preliminary data to have published it. So the first 10 patients in that study after 6 months have regained normal heart function. On the pancreas, on the first 7 patients, we had between 40 to 60% improvement of the various parameters associated with Parkinson's, so poor sleep, anxiety, depression, tremor, balance, those kinds of things. We are preparing one on COPD, preparing one on liver failure, colitis. Not that we want to say that the product is good for this condition. Really, all we want to say is stem cells are the body's repair system. That repair system declines as we age. The number of stem cells that you naturally have in your blood past 40, 50 years of age is not enough to allow you to repair like you used to. So you don't recover as fast and you start developing various problems. So if we can put more stem cells in circulation, here, these studies are showing what your body can do with them to show that yes, your heart can utilize them, your brain can utilize them, your lung can utilize them, to basically point in direction to say everything in your body can utilize them. So really what we're documenting here is just to show this is your repair system. And if you can boost it, support it, it does give your body an amazing ability to repair and rejuvenate.
So what is in the plants? Like, what's the power of the plants?
The blue-green algae, for example, contain an L-selectin blocker, which basically blocks the expression of the receptor that I described before that connect with the SDF1 that attracts stem cells to an injury. That same mechanism is constantly in the bone marrow to keep the stem cells in the bone marrow. If you interfere with this process, stem cells get detached from the bone marrow. So as you reduce the expression of that receptor, then stem cells lose their adhesion in the bone marrow. So that's how the blue-green algae is working. Panax notogensin works by shifting the concentration gradient of the SDF1. So that SDF1 in the bone marrow normally is there in the bone marrow, but not in the rest of your body. The moment that it starts to rise in the bloodstream, then it makes, so stem cells will migrate to an SDF1 gradient. So if you have them, for example, in a migration chamber, and at one end of the chamber, you start to pulse SDF1, all the stem cells align themselves and starts to migrate in that direction. So you take Panax notogensin, the SDF1 concentration decreases in the bone marrow, increases in the blood. So it makes stem cells now drive toward the blood compartment. Sea buckthornberry and another one that we're studying now in the lab that is giving us so far great response. I won't say what it is for now until we complete that work, but it makes your body secrete the compounds that signal for injury. So it's just like compounds will do, like we call them like fast mimicking compounds. So call them injury mimicking compounds. So we take these products and within an hour or two, we can pick up in the blood GCSF, stem cell factor, that is then triggering the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So these are like the different mechanism of action through which these plants are working.
Wow. So you're unsticking the stem cells. You're driving the direction for migration.
We generate in the body, let's say, a fake signal of injury. So your body naturally does what your body would do when you have an injury, which is to release stem cells.
So how does a typical person, like if someone's just in their 40s and they're healthy and they want to use StemRegen, how would they use it versus someone who has a chronic condition and really wants to heal some tissues?
Maintenance is 2 capsules a day. This is enough to release enough stem cells here to just do proper maintenance. Let's say we lose cells every day. You put stem cells back in circulation. So you allow your body to offset that cellular loss every day. So that's sort of the maintenance program. Oftentimes when somebody has no issue, they will come back after a month or two and they'll say, well, I don't really feel what it's doing. It is just because you have released your stem cells every day of your life. You don't feel what a stem cell does. You feel it when it repairs something and the problem goes away. Now you feel it. So I would say if you want to feel it, do something like go to the gym and trash yourself. Do something that you know the day after you will be sore. And take 2 capsules right after, 2 before you go to bed, and see how different you will be the day after. You will you will look at yourself and you will say, did I really go to the gym yesterday? Because you have repaired so much quicker. It will give you in your body the experience. This is what your stem cells are doing. So when you don't feel it, they are still doing their job. And if you have a problem, 2 capsules 3 times a day. That's what we do in our clinical trials. Do that for a month and see what it brings to you. And stop and see where you are. And if you feel that, no, there's still more progress to come, do it for another month. And after 3 months, your body oftentimes will have reached quite a bit of progress.
Are there any other surprising outcomes that you've seen?
Many things happen. Many organs and tissues go from subclinical degeneration problem. It has not reached diagnosis. You're just in a subclinical place. And as everything starts to repair and work better, it's everything in your body that starts to improve. Now, everybody will experience it in a different way. So some of them, it's better sleep, better concentration, better digestion, better all kinds of things. It's very common. One of the most common is people coming back and saying, well, I took the product for X problem. I have not yet seen the benefit there, but people are asking me what I'm taking because they think my skin, like I'm looking younger. So your skin renews every month. It's a big user of stem cells. When you put more stem cells in circulation, more stem cells get in your skin. It's more fibroblasts. It's more like everything in your skin can renew and give back more your natural skin. So skin is where a lot of people see it first.
Wow. And I love that. It's not so much like the localized effect of how this is going to change their stem cell regeneration. You're regenerating all tissues on so many levels. Is there anything that synergizes really well? Like if I were to take your product, I noticed you mentioned something about PEMF or circulation.
Exercise will support blood flow in the delivery of stem cells. PMF we now know more and more. The main mechanism of action of PMF is stem cells. It drags them, pulls them into an area, supports their migration, their multiplication, even their differentiation into muscle cells, chondrocytes. If you take stem cells in a test tube and expose that test tube to PMF, you trigger the transformation of stem cells into cells of your joints. So red lights will support, hyperbaric chamber will support, anything that will support stem cell, like collagen peptides, because stem cells and tissue repair has to take place on a soft skeleton, a backbone of collagen. Every single tissue is holding itself through collagen. So collagen peptides help this whole process to happen better in the body. Let me talk about a video that I often present when I do lectures. It's a video of the work of Doris Taylor. She isolated the heart from a mouse, circulated digestive enzymes in the heart to completely digest the cardiac muscle. So at the end of about 12 hours, they're left with just the soft skeleton of the heart. And on that soft skeleton of the heart that still retains the trace that it was a heart, they isolated stem cells from the animal's bone marrow and just laid that out on that connective tissue. And a week later, you have a beating heart in the test tube. It's amazing. Your stem cells in your bone marrow can regenerate an entire heart. Unbelievable. So the question is not, are stem cells working? The question is, what is standing in the way of stem cells to do that in the body? Now, go back to the study that I shared with stable chronic congestive heart failure. We do see regeneration of the heart. But the point is, in people where we don't see this, where people who have like a chronic condition, you're still releasing your stem cells. Why don't they go to the place that is in need of repair? And there are two main obstacles in the body. One is poor microcirculation. So a place that has a chronic problem, the chronic nature of the problem has oftentimes damaged the microcirculation. So a stem cell that can be up to 30 micron needs to do yoga to be able to get into this 12 micron capillary. So a lot of things need to align. So we need to have better blood fluidity, so you get better entrainment, blood, like dilation of arterioles to bring more blood. The capillaries need to have greater flexibility to properly extend. You need a good glycocalyx to be able to have cells to really circulate easily through capillaries. So we have a product, Mobilize. I mean, people can take these ingredients separately, but we brought them all together. Nattokinase, better blood fluidity, nitric oxide producer to dilate arterioles, a blend of bioflavonoids and herbal extract to help rebuild capillaries, and polysaccharides to rebuild the glycocalyx. So you can do these to rebuild the microvasculature. And the other one is a stem cells follow inflammation. Inflammation is first and foremost a signal to tell stem cells where they need to go for repair. So if something does not repair and it releases constantly inflammatory signal, they become systemic. And when you have systemic inflammation, that means stem cells are released, but they cannot detect where it is that they need to go. So we created a product that is a blend of plant extract that touches every single pathways of inflammation.
You've mentioned water, like even the surface tension of water having an effect.
A water with low surface tension can penetrate tissue so easily. So if you start to now put in your body that kind of water, it just increases cells function, cellular communication, penetration of everything that needs to penetrate or exit a cell. I mean, it gave me a deep understanding here of the importance of the water that we put in our bodies. We talk a lot about hydrogen water, great, but restructured water that has low surface tension. There's a water that comes in Klamath Lake where this blue-green algae is growing that is absolutely phenomenal. So this is like purely like restructured water. It is IPH just because of the structure of the natural angle of hydrogen, oxygen. It is restructured water. And I'm saying this because if you drink that water, 4 degrees C, you don't feel the cold in your stomach. Like it almost like your esophagus absorbs it before it reaches the stomach. I know that studies have been done on this. I don't think enough has been done to really show the impact on health.
So where do you see the future of StemRegen and where it's going? What's your vision?
What we want to show is to show that the ability of the human body to repair is so powerful that it can actually repair organs that today medicine considers cannot repair, at least past a certain age. The main reason why we age and develop problems is because that ability to repair declines as we age. The moment we discover that and accept it for everything that it means, it changes how we practice medicine. Any problem that you have, first thing, tap into your ability to repair. I mean, it's the first thing that you would do anytime. The cost of medical treatments, the cost of medical care, because of those problems associated with age, is probably the biggest cost of our society today. It's all caused because we have a decline in number of stem cells. What if we start to put more stem cells in the bloodstream of everybody? It changes everything. I will go even one step further. We may not have time to dive into this, but the reason why there's so much obstacles to stem cell research, why do you have to go to Mexico to get a stem cell injection? Why? Well, most people think stem cell injections are risky. They're safer than most drugs that are taken in this country. The reason why people believe this is a messaging that has been put into their mind, because if we really accept everything that we've talked about and we go in the direction where all of this is going, it destroys pharma as it stands today. Let's see how society is willing to move with it. But if all of this development was based, put lobbyings, put interest aside, let's say science and the interest of the public, if we put that front and center, we will accept what stem cells are doing. They are the repair system of the body. We will see that when you put more in circulation, you can reach amazing effect in the body in terms of repair and health maintenance. And it will become what everybody should do as a basics, as a strategy here to live long and healthy.
I echo all that, and I applaud you for your research and going rogue and being the rebel that you are. Because I know it takes a lot to go against what the conditioning and the old paradigm is. So I commend you for it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I don't think I could do otherwise.
Thank you so much for taking us on a deep dive with stem cells. Thank you for reminding us that we have this regenerative capacity within us. StemRegen is just another way to optimize what's inside. Where can people find you?
StemRegen.co, so StemRegen.co. You can see the product, you can see all the science. And on social media, Stem Cell Christian. Instagram, TikTok, that's where I answer most of the questions that we get.
Okay. Thank you so much, Christian. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.
If you like this episode, share it with a friend. For more conversations filled with awe and wonder, be sure to subscribe to the Vitalist podcasts. Till next time.